is mean old man right here. This is like Clint Eastwood. He was like, "Don't mess with me.
Yeah.
Get off my lawn." That was some business.
Bowling, banter, anything that pops into our head.
What's up, folks, and welcome to a new type of show that we're here to introduce to you called Bowling Banter. I am Chad McClain here with a Mr.
Zach Trevino.
And we're going to be talking to you just off the cuff, nonchalant, anything that pops into our head. It's going to be pretty interesting, so stick around for this.
So the topic that's been really hot this week, here we're looking near the end of February, is Norm Duke's big triumphant moment at the recent PBA Indianapolis Open. This was Norm's first singles win in quite some time, and it was a great show to watch. It was emotional, it was intense, action-packed. It was just a really good telecast, and that's something that's really fresh on all of our minds right now, and weighing on our hearts as well.
Yeah, when we all came into the office Monday, I'm not sure if you were here, but we were all just kind of wow, how cool was that? Because he was the youngest player to win a title, not quite the oldest, even though 54 is pretty stout going against some of these guys with all the revs and all the power. So what he's able to do and still do to this day is super impressive.
Yeah, and it's a testament to his, not only his skill but his devotion. I mean, there's not hardly anybody out there that doesn't like Norm Duke. From a personal standpoint, from a competitive standpoint, the guy is just the man.
Oh yeah, if you talk to Norm, if you ever have a chance to talk to Norm, he just makes you feel like $1 million. It makes you feel like you're the most important person in the world, and he's been one of my favorites for a super long time, and I was honestly getting choked up watching him just even speak about what it means to be on TV again, because he said in the pregame interview that any time could be his last time. Yeah,
they hadn't even. He was interviewing with Kimberly, and they hadn't even started bowling yet. It was before any of the matches, and he was already getting choked up. Just being in that setting, which is great. The telecast in our sport, I think, really thrives off emotion. I think it's great to see those moments, whether it's guys that are passionate and fired up, or that are really relicking in maybe what could be the last moment for him.
So yeah, it means a lot to him. It means so much to him, and it means a lot to us to watch him win that. So we've got some clips that we're gonna kind of break down. I'd like to talk about the arsenal and what their ball choices were, and then we could actually freeze frame it and zoom in and see what the layouts are actually, and see what types of surfaces they're using on some of these patterns. Because the interesting thing about this tournament was it was a different pattern on each lane. There's a 45-foot, and then there was a 38-foot, correct? So, and in this first match, actually, with Rhino specifically, he was using two balls that kind of challenges the normal way that you would think of how someone would attack these patterns.
Yeah.
He was using a big ball, physics, on the shorter pattern,
correct,
and a ball that's not as aggressive. It was pretty a symmetrical ball, right, on the longer pattern. So we're going to take a couple shots of that, and then get into some and talk about some other stuff too. It doesn't have to be about this tournament, even though as cool as it was. I'd like to show some of the behind the scenes stuff with this new style of TV show that we're producing now. Yeah.
Let's and we'll kind of get right to it. So I guess let's break down and take a look at the match between Rhino and Wes. Right, this was the first match that we had. So as Chad mentioned, you've got two different patterns. Longer pattern on the left lane, the shorter, more hooking pattern that was on the right. And again, as he mentioned earlier, so Rhino was actually throwing idle pearl in the left lane.
Pin-up idle pearl.
Pin-up idle pearl that had some surface on it. And that's going to be a very common theme amongst all the guys on the show. Even some of the balls that look shinier, they're really not shiny. That's purely an effect
TV lights
of the TV lights.
Right.
Kind of like my forehead right now.
They're super
so there's... The idle pearl, with some surface on it, but even still, a lot of people associate that with a very skid snap, very skid flip, late breaking reaction, which to some folks would make sense as to why you would throw that on a longer pattern. Now, and throwing physics, which is a stronger cover, stronger weight block, definitely earlier rolling on the more hooking lane. And Chad, why do you think that Rhino went with that approach?
Now, first of all, these TV lights really beat up these patterns. And if you watch the show in its entirety, the scores were low. They did not. Yeah. The pace was certainly not the same as it was during the week. Now, what the Rhino's plan of attack is, we'll see here. Like you said, the left lane is the long lane, and the right lane is the shorter pattern. Now, the left lane is he's using the pin-up idle pearl, but it's got surface on it. So people associate pin-up balls go longer. No, technically they don't, because you're putting the holes into the side of that weight block. You're raising the RG of that weight block wherever you put those holes. So now you're maintaining the low differential of the bowling ball, but raising the overall total diff. So that ball is trying to do everything that it can to see the lane soon. So couple that with the surface that he has on it, and it's actually a really good choice for that pattern. But if you take a look at his physics, that pin is way off to the side. It's a shorter pin to pap type of layout, which controls the lane because you've got so much friction. You got it's 38 feet, so you've got 20 some odd feet of dry lane, and you've really got to tame down those back ends, because that's a lot of movement that ball can produce unless you're able to tone it down a little bit.
Sure, yeah, and Rhino does this often. We've seen him throw Sherlocks, bigger, stronger shells with shorter pin layouts, and it's very much for that reason. And he's not the straightest lefty. Pretty good rev rate, pretty good amount of rotation. So you'll see him play some shape. Typically, he's not going to go dead up the boards. But by having those stronger, earlier rolling layouts, leaves the ball a little bit more stable on the back end of the pattern. And when you've got a lot of friction, that's what you want. The guys want these balls going through the pins forward, not still trying to hook, not going through sideways. That's where you really get in trouble. And we saw that even later on in the matches with a lot of the 210 variations that came into play.
A lot of 210 combos.
And again, this was on the quote-unquote hooking lane, or the shorter pattern. So it's not a bad idea, as you guys, especially some of the higher rev players, or the players that really have a tough time with the balls just checking really hard or going sideways off the spot down lane. If you get into an environment that penalizes you for doing that, it's not a bad idea to try and get those balls to be rolling sooner.
And excuse me, Wes here is actually kind of accomplishing the same thing. He's got a marble pearl, and it's a pin-up marble pearl. But for him, for his speed, his rev rate, and he comes around it quite a bit. That's the right ball for that pattern, the shorter pattern at that time. It makes the ball slow down, makes the friction very early, so it picks up and tames it down actually. So a pin down ball on the right lane on the shorter pattern may be too over under in that instance. So, but on the left lane, he's got a pin down halo pearl, and you said something earlier that he went from a pin. What was it?
Yeah, so earlier in this match, he's throwing it down. Later, and we'll see as we get into the match against Tom and eventually Norm, he's throwing an up. So he goes from a down to an up. And the shape of the balls are very, very different. And we've done some videos on that. We've talked about this before, that the ups and downs aren't exactly what they used to be. And it's interesting to see the guys transition between them in this regard. And so as we get to that match, we'll touch on Wes's layouts a little bit more.
It is good to see Rhino back on TV. He's got his confidence back, I feel like.
Yeah, and he's made a couple shows this year. We've seen him a few times, and Wes Randy touched on this on the show. Wes has been pretty close for a number of weeks. He's been rolling the ball really well, back into shape, got his legs back under him.
Lost some weight.
Yep, yeah, and he's a big guy. He's had some knee problems. So and Wes is one of those guys that he gets better the more he bowls. Wes doesn't do a lot of practicing. Some people know that, some people don't. Practice for him is going to be a local tournament or a regional tournament. He doesn't do a lot of practicing. He's got a lot of feel, and typically the more shots he throws the more he can kind of dial that in. So we're seeing that now, I think, with the way the format is, because, you know, with this new format and the telecast that they're doing with Fox, it's a week in, week out schedule, which is kind of how it used to be.
That plays to his strength.
Yeah, more recently, with the past few years, everything has been taped before. Everything's kind of been bowled at one time, and if you're a streaky player, you see some of the same guys on the shows. You know, especially for the shows that are taped in the same building. You know, some guys just match up at South Point or match up wherever. So, this format, I think you're seeing a little bit more. You'll see a little bit more variety. Obviously, Belmo, you know, now made 3 shows in a row. And is on a tear. But guys like Wes, who can kind of build that rhythm week in and week out, it's good. It provides a little bit of variety on the guys that we're seeing excel on all kinds of different patterns.
Tom Doherty, Wes Malott. A couple big guys, couple big rev rates. And just like Rhino and Wes before him, Tom's using 2 different balls on each lane. Or I'm sorry, 2 different balls on the pair. And he's the first and only guy on the show that uses urethane on the right lane.
Yeah.
And so when he throws his first shot, it was the best look of the day so far, in my opinion. It saw it early and wasn't too quick off the spot. I like what Wes is doing here, but it's just too under. It's too sporadic, and it doesn't look. It looks too difficult to almost control, and urethane takes a lot of that out of play. As you can see here, it's just. That doesn't look like a bad shot, but watch it just go sideways and almost cross over. So I think urethane. I'm not sure if Wes throws urethane a lot. Do you know?
Yeah, not really. He, at least from what I remember, and just in talking with him, you know, he likes to see him shape a little bit, and typically, because his PAP is 4 1/4 to 4.5, and so he can get the ball through the front pretty well still, and urethane just kind of fights him on that. So usually he can use, you know, longer, kind of slower pin buffers, more surface to get the ball to slow down off the end of the pattern, even when they're really tough. You know, the Bear tournament, Bear pattern, U.S. Opens, obviously he's a U.S. Open champion, and was throwing a little more stable, lower differential balls to get him to be smoother off the spot. So he's not a big proponent of urethane, but I agree with you. So I thought that
this shot right here by Tom was the best look of the day so far in the right lane. That's the plan of attack I would go. I would do exactly what Tom was doing right there if I was on the show.
Yeah, and you know what? It's interesting too, because of where he's throwing urethane. You know, I would be willing to bet that Norm was probably throwing some surface out there and in the practice shots.
It looked like he crossed about 8 at the arrows. Norm was right of him. I know, especially the last game against Belmo was he was around first arrow.
Yeah, right around 5. But they were really the only 2 guys that were out there.
Yeah.
You know, and even though the first match against Rhino, Wes whacked him, and other than I think he 2-8-10 on the right lane, but other than that, he bowled a pretty big game against Rhino. But you know, Tom being the only one out there, and I agree with you, and his rev rate, it's big, but he's got a lot of forward roll, and so that urethane ball definitely picked up well out there, and just struggled with the left lane, as Wes did also.
All right, Wes is still throwing the pin down Halo Pearl, which is available, Mr. RSM, when?
March 8th.
March 8th. Okay.
So this is a shot that he definitely got up the lane. You know, at the time, he had a pretty good look on the left lane, and you know, throwing it slow. Wes is really good with adjusting speeds, but this one was definitely shallow. Just never got to the spot and left a pretty big split in the 6th frame at a point really where he was already down to Tom.
Yeah. He's throwing a pitch black here, urethane ball to spare ball, which is perfectly okay, and a huge conversion. That kept him in the match. What a great shot. That was
that was big. And
props from Tom.
Absolutely. And at the time, he was down about 20.
Yeah.
And had previously just wasn't stringing them, you know, and so that helps quite a bit for momentum wise.
Yep.
Even a big split like that, it's every pin counts, especially just one game matches. You can't give away pins like that. So that was good conversion by Wes.
Yep. They go through a nasty transition this game, and you could see it at those scores right now. They're lucky to break 180 right now, and that's trying pretty hard. So
yeah, and it's interesting because I really thought I'm pretty sure. Let's see. Yeah, so that was Tom's second strike on the left lane, but Wes again at this point is down, made the big split, goes back to the hook and lane. He's still throwing Marvel Pearl. Just kind of jammed it there. It looked like he might have moved his feet a little bit inside, but was really clean off his hand. And so now you're trying to build a little bit of momentum within 10 pins now down. But he gets back over to the left lane where he had that big split. And what happened?
History repeated itself, right? And you can see him there working with Tim Mack, and Tim's one of the best in the industry. He's been all over the world. His reputation precedes himself. So Tim is the man when it comes to seeing ball motion and knowing where to go to. And that ball is just never had a chance. Way too quick off the spot, and he pays the price again on this left lane. So it is no easy feat out there right now.
Yeah, and it looks like he made a move to get a little bit steeper, but got his hand around it a little bit more. He really got on that one at the bottom, and yeah, it's like it just never made it to the spot. And I'd be curious to know if that's where he made the ball change, if that's where he went to the up, because the pin ups are going to be quicker in response. Again, doesn't necessarily mean it's going longer. You can have a 4.5 inch pin up and a 4.5 inch pin down, but that up is going to have a shorter pin buffer, which makes it respond to the friction a lot more aggressively.
Yeah.
We wrapped up with that second match there. Tom had a chance there to get
put it where he wanted it to.
Yeah, to get around Wes on the right lane. Had the right look with that urethane ball, just didn't quite get to the pins the right way. So there's another good match, and now we have
Storm and Norman.
Yeah. Shrek and Donkey facing off against each other.
Cool. So we're back with Wes and Norm. Now this is a fun match, and I was hoping this match would happen because these guys are friends. They've won 2 PBA doubles events together, and you can see the love that they share right now. I mean, they're hugging it out. They are the biggest guy to the smallest guy, and this was going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, and there's a couple things really that were new about his game from an equipment standpoint for this show versus really the last show that he'd made. One thing, a pair of shoes. Norm's never really been a big performance pair of shoe guy. Interchangeables. He's very traditional with shoes and wears them till they're just nothing. So he's got a custom pair of shoes that have some interchangeables and and with all the different environments that the guys bowl in, all the different surfaces, different approaches, it's really valuable, honestly. It's so challenging to just expect to have the same footing week in and week out. Even if you're bowling tournaments, you're bowling league in different houses for even just non-professionals. It's difficult. The other thing is Norm is extremely finicky with his fit. Chad, have you drilled bowling balls for Norm Duke?
I've drilled. Duke came out to Storm a while ago for the Sherlock. Yeah, when we were introducing the Sherlock, he came out for some videos. We had a contest with him, and he's very picky about his fit. If you know Norm or have ever spoken to anyone about Norm, it is 3 holes, no bevel, no nothing. And he's a master of tape. Tape is his and cork especially too. He also has to have 3 ounces of side weight, and the most miraculous thing is that he could feel it. Yeah. If you have a quarter side weight, nope, do it over. That's how it's. He's a machine. Honestly, it boggles my mind the things that he can do. He's such a feel player, and if you ever get a chance to watch his Quiet Mind DVD, which I believe is still available on the Storm website, it's a great watch, and it really opens up a lot of new topics and things that you'd never really thought about before, especially at the sports psychology
sure
sort of thing. So
Yeah, he's a wealth of knowledge, and he kind of has his own way to explaining things, as most Southerners do.
Yeah.
He hits a heartstring for me just because I'm a Texas boy, and he grew up in Oklahoma and Texas and all that area. So, and Wes is obviously from Central Texas as well. But the other thing, I mentioned the shoes, but Norm also worked recently with trying to simplify this fit, and it's not necessarily because he wasn't really making changes or anything, but he wanted to be able to replicate it and not take as long between beveling and sanding and getting everything just right. It's okay to be a perfectionist.
Count it. It's a new word.
Perfect analyst.
Perfectionist.
It's okay to be a perfectionist with your fit, but it's important whether you're drilling your own stuff as a pro shop professional, or if you're taking your equipment to be drilled by your local PSO.
He does drill his own stuff.
Yeah,
he's got to drill at his house.
But it's important to be able to replicate them.
Yep.
And honestly, it just comes down to it. The more work that's done by hand, more beveling, the more sanding, it's harder to replicate. Particularly if you're not doing it yourself. Now, again, Norm's amazing at it, but if you've got a certain amount of bevel that you like, a certain finishing work, for example, me and Chad can drill 2 balls and hit the exact same specs, same depths, same drill bits, same lines, but we're going to finish them very differently, even if it's for the same person. The stroke of bevel, some guys bevel backhand, some bevel both. It's the finishing methods are different. So from a fitting standpoint, if you can simplify some of that, it just helps ball to ball. Now, there are interchangeable pieces that assist with that as well, thumb molds, there's all kinds. But even if you're just using no slugs or a thumb slug, a traditional glued-in slug, the more that you can dial everything in on the press, where there's actual measurements and can be more calculated, the less work by hand. Typically, the easier it's going to be to replicate those balls. We just saw Wes get a really good break tripping out the 4.710 on a shot that looked like he might have turned it early. He didn't like it. Again, Wes has a ton of feel. You can usually get pretty close to guessing a score just by watching Wes and his body language. You don't even have to watch the pins because he's going to tell you if you like the shot or not. Wes has now gone to that pin-up Halo Pearl on the left lane. And Chad, what's Norm throwing?
Norm's throwing a Sonic, which is something that you don't normally see on the PBA Tour. And we talked with Tim and Jim and Dell and Mike and the guys on the tour reps, and Sonics they don't see a lot of action out there, and that's solely because they use so much oil out there on tour, and it's a pearlized, polished ball. Unless you really crack that shell with some good surface, it's not going to really get that much game time. Sure. So because I'm not sure if he used it during the week, but especially on the TV lights with as much heat and as much friction as what's being generated out there, that Sonic was a great option for Norm, and he's almost duplicating the same line, the same look on the left lane on the different pattern with the idle pearl.
Yeah, and it's throwing idle pearl on the left lane. Simply, the ball just has a little bit stronger engine in it, more differential. Both of them, they're going to look a little shiny on TV, but they've got some surface on them for sure.
They do.
And similar layouts too. I think if you look at both of them,
both pin up.
I believe the Sonic is a little bit shorter pin to pap. I think it's out right of his ring finger and up, in that kind of 2 o'clock position. But similar parts of the lane, both symmetric. And you see some similarities, and Norm is just taking into account the different links in oil with a stronger or weaker. I shouldn't even say weaker weight block. It's really the Centripetal HD that's in the Sonic is just a pretty early rolling shape, but it does have a little less flare potential than what's in the idle pearl.
Yeah. Here on the shorter pattern, where Wes is needing a little bit more ball speed, he is further away from the foul line, but if we watch him on the left lane with the longer pattern, he's actually in front of the first set of dots. So if I eyeball it, that's a good 3 feet from where he is from side to side, and that's how Wes changes ball speed.
Yeah, which 3 feet for Wes is like half a step, but for the most part, yeah, absolutely. And you generate that speed with your legs. You're generating ball speed forward momentum with your legs 100%. And even for a pretty big guy, Wes doesn't take the biggest of steps. Primarily his first step is pretty small, But on the left lane, everything is even more condensed.
Yep.
Just to try and control, again, ball speed. You don't really see him with a lower backswing. You don't see with, if you looked at him waist up, you can't tell the difference between each lane. But yeah, it's about 2 miles an hour difference off his hand, that's substantial. I would encourage anybody that's practicing to try and do that and throw shots consistently and hit your targets with that big of a speed variance.
Yeah.
So we just saw West 2-8. This was an interesting shot here. We saw him 2-8 on the left lane, and this was after a pretty big move. So, we saw him chase it in. He's went now from a pin down halo pearl, pin up halo pearl, kept getting in, kept getting steeper, and now has just jumped an entire zone right.
Yes.
And if you think about the guys that made the show, Wes was in, left a third arrow, Tom and left a third arrow, Rhino obviously on the left side, Duke way out. So there's a part of the lane that's kind of been preserved. Somewhere between, I would say, 10 and 15, roughly. And by tradition standpoints, if you're from traditional thinking, I should say, you think of like the rule of 31. They're a 45-foot pattern, so realistically that break point should be somewhere around the 14th board. Wes was getting there, I would say, anywhere between 12 to 14, and his rev rate allows him to get the ball a little farther away from the pocket, but from a much steeper angle. And you're going to see that again. It's attributed probably a little bit to the heat, how those lanes are playing. The guys also do get a chance to kind of beat them up with some surface a little bit, right? You always want to try to create as much mist room as you can. But Wes's angles just got too steep. And what happens is you have so much oil in the front part of the lane, especially on a pattern that's that long. And as he got farther in, the ball, it was just too much. There's just not enough friction. And he felt like if he got to the spot, it boomeranged, and if not, you just didn't have a chance. So he moved right, made a zone change to the right, and 2-8, but we're going to see that pay off for him.
Yeah. Duke's still one of the more athletic guys on tour, even at 54, stopping with a 16-pound ball in his hand like it weighed 8 pounds. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that was a close call.
Yeah.
I would say there, and
almost did a Machuga flop, his buddy Machuga.
His first ever title. Look at this.
and even still, you see on that shot, he kind of flared out of it, kind of stood up out of one.
Yeah, he's not comfortable with that.
Norm is a master of foul line adjustments, and is there really a way to teach foul line adjustments?
No, it's all feel. It's all just experience. And those last second bowler adjustments that you just do subconsciously is amazing.
Yeah, and he's just phenomenal at them. And you'll see he has a number of finishing positions based on that. If there's a little bit of stick, he's not going to get as much knee bend in it because obviously that toe isn't continuing. So he's going to try and stand up out of it, but still keep everything as square as he can to the target. Maybe back his hand out of it a little bit because there was an abrupt stop in momentum, maybe a little bit of grab. So it's just little things like that. And when you've been bowling, you've thrown as many shots as Norm Duke has. You have just your feel is on just high alert all the time.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
There it is. 99 wins, 85 losses. And this is his career on TV. I couldn't imagine being on TV once, let alone bowling 180 some games on TV.
Yeah, and if you're averaging 229, that's on a multitude of patterns
over
and
decades.
Oh yeah, and different lane surfaces with urethane, with reactive, with probably some polyester.
Oh yeah, he's been around the block a time or two.
No, it's incredible.
He's old school as it gets. He's got the blueprints to the old school in his basement somewhere. He built the old school. We have a possibility of a tie going into this 10th frame. They both strike out 215. Duke, such the break right there with that late 10 falling. The 6 stands up in the channel and then just dominoes over onto the 10. So slow, but so worth it and really exciting to watch. You see a little leprechaun hop from Duke there after the 10 finally goes.
And this is mean old man right here. This is like Clint Eastwood. He was like, "Don't mess with me. Get off my lawn." that was some business, and
girl in the front row is tweeting it. I can't believe I seen it with me own eyes. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a guest that just walked in. Come here. Come on. Come on. Come on. Just come say hi. We're in a TV show.
Come down the bowl, man. You're in the way.
We're okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Mr. Bill Chrisman that just walked in. So, Bill, say hi. We're breaking down
How am I saying hi to?
this microphone right here.
Okay. Hi there, microphone. No.
No, we're watching. We're going back and reliving the show. Norm's win here.
And we're actually just started the title match. So, Bill, what did you think of the tournament this weekend? What did you think of watching the best bowler in the world, arguably right now, bowl against one of the all-time greats in Norm for the title? What did you think of the whole setup?
For me, it was about as good as it could be. I mean, it was about as good a scenario as I could imagine. So, I'm not friends with Norm, and I've known Jason since he was 17, and Jason's definitely as good as anybody's ever been, and Norm is just a master of bowl. He's very, very good with a touch. I mean, and he can bowl. And he said he was going to win a couple of weeks before on flow bowling, and he did it. So
Pretty cool setup.
and he's leading again this week. So
Oh, we're gonna put you on the spot then, real quick. Will Norm Duke win another tournament this year?
I won't. First of all, winning a tournament's difficult, as you can see. Jason dominated for 3 weeks and won one tournament. I mean, he led a total of 1,600 pins. He led the field by in 3 weeks. So
For it to come down to one game,
and it comes down. I can beat him in one game. So
Let's make that happen.
no,
we got to make that happen
you
here.
don't know what's happening. You just don't know what can happen. And I couldn't beat much of anybody. But I mean, the truth of the matter is, it's very one game's a very difficult thing.
Sure.
I'm not sure I necessarily agree with that format, but that's what you got to do to make good TV. And so, it was a great match between him and Norm.
It was a good match.
But Norm got off and got on top, and when he does that, he just kind of smothers his opponent sometimes, especially when they're a little bit tough, and he can play out and he can just feather the ball like he does. And and as long as if they keep making conditions where there's two different conditions on one on each lane, one on the other lane, and Norm can play a little out, although today he's bowling and he's playing the left lane. He's throwing out over about 25. So, I mean, he can,
He can't hook it.
He doesn't want to hook it that much, but he's really, really good with a touch. Another thing Norm has going for him right now is, for the first time in his career, he's actually able to change bowling balls. Okay.
Oh, from like a storm to a...
No, he can change different bowling balls, different storm bowling balls. Before this last week, Norm has to work out every thumb. It takes him, he can do one ball a week.
Okay.
Yeah, we were talking about
So what's happened
takes.
with Norm, if you look in the past, even 10 years ago, he'd win with balls that were 5 years old. Because he was comfortable in his hand, he could get that kind of reaction. Right now, Cecil with Vice Grips worked with him, and he's using interchangeable thumbs. I noticed today he had a brand new Crux Prime that he was using. So he's never been able to do that in his whole career. So I'm not sure. Of course, interchangeable thumbs have probably been available for the last 8 years or so. But even in the last 8 years, I'm not sure that if he didn't have that tool, he might have won 5 or 6 more tournaments.
Yeah.
So asking me whether he's going to win again this year, that's probably, if they keep the lanes tough, whenever the lanes are tough, whatever tournament it is,
Cream will rise to the top.
he's got a very good chance. Awesome. He's got a very good chance of winning again. But he'll make another show this year.
There you go.
Yes.
Okay, I will tell you that. Now whether he's got to, once you make that's the trick. You make the show, and then from there on there's a little luck involved.
Yeah.
So anyhow,
Cool.
but you guys are in my way. I can't.
Well, we only have one match left, so we're almost wrapped up.
I'll get.
Maybe we'll come throw some shots with you.
Okay.
All right. Maybe we'll put you on camera, recording you.
Don't ever ask me a question again on camera, because I will answer your question.
That's why we like it. That's why we like
Thanks,
it.
Bill.
Now, cool fact here. I don't know if you guys at home were listening, but this is the first time these two have ever met on TV. They've bowled each other for days in match play and in tournaments for years, but this is the first time they've ever done it on TV. So super exciting. Such a huge story between Belmo leading his 3rd tournament in a row by a monster amount of pins, and Duke trying his hardest to get back in the winner's circle with his 39th title. How cool of a setup is that?
Yeah, it doesn't get any better. There's no doubt that Belmo is he's the best in the world.
Yeah.
And we all know it. Some folks might not want to admit it, but
I have a theory on that. Actually, Zach.
Go ahead.
Now, let's
leave that up there because it's good. Those are good numbers to leave up to.
That is good. Now, he is the quickest to get to 10 majors, obviously. Now, we can look at the data and the stats notwithstanding, but what Belmo is able to do to a bowling ball boggles the mind. And, yeah. He throws it two-hand, like it or hate it. It's new, it's inventive, and it's not his revs and his power that sets him above the rest.
Correct.
You can quote me on that. It's his ability to change speed. It's his ability to change axis rotation. It's his ability to loft it. It's his ability to hit anywhere on the lane repeatedly while changing anything at a moment's notice. He was here not too long ago, just a couple weeks ago, and I was showing him the ins and outs of the Specto. And we had Alex Hoskins in here, and he's like, what's that number right there? Well, that's the break point. He's like, all right, well, that's the most important number. And watch that number. He throws 10 shots back to back to back to back. And at 40 feet at the break point, he was within a half a board difference. Every shot. And this is hooking literally the whole lane.
Yeah, he's not throwing a plastic ball.
No, and so to be able to cross that many boards and be that accurate at 40 feet, that's why he's the best in the world. Sure, anyone who throws two-hand or a one-hand, no thumb, like Tom Doherty, their pocket goes from this to this. Yeah, they're going to carry a lot more shots, but it's his ability to repeat shots and be accurate and know what to do going into it that makes Jason Belmonte the best in the world.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's not what he does. It's why and how, because he knows why. He knows how to do it. You know, the what is impressive, but if you can't harness that, I mean,
it's the fine print that
absolutely.
that really sets him apart from the rest. And we have two-handers, but they're not as accurate as he is. They're not as repeatability. Their consistency or repeatability. It's great. Your pocket goes from this to this, like I said, but he's able to do it with such precision. It blows my mind what he's able to do to a bowling ball and that's why Jason Belmonte is best in the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to give you a little bit more insider info. This is how Duke practices his spares. He practices it by trying to miss. Let's say he leaves a 4-pin. Okay. He tries to miss the 4-pin by as little as he possibly can. Literally, he tries to make it wiggle.
Okay.
That's how he practices his spares. That's how accurate you have to be in Norm Duke's mind to be successful at spares.
Yeah, that's incredible.
So
a lot of people try to hit it in the face.
Why does he do that? This is exactly why he does that. So he can pick up stuff like that.
Yeah, and that was a huge spare.
What?
You know, at this point, Norm starts with a 3-bagger, spares the 4-9. From a momentum standpoint, that's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, it's absolutely huge. Norm doesn't leave a lot of 4-9s. Usually his ball's going through the pins more forward, and he's able to get one of those out. But off his hand, he knew he picked it up. He absolutely knew he picked it up. And many years back, I was told a story. I believe it was probably from Robert Lawrence, talking about Norm in a setting very much similar to this in a final match. It may or may not have been on TV. It may or may not have been for more or less money. But nonetheless, it came down to a mark in the 10th, and he 4-9'd. And Norm turned around to his opponent. He said, "Bet you double or nothing, I'll spare this in the 10th," and ultimately win the match. And absolutely, take that bet, put a piece of tape on the lane, ran it right over, spared the 4-9,
wanted
winner,
to.
winner, chicken dinner. When I watched this live, and I saw him leave the 4-9, you just knew he was going to pick it up. I did, personally. I just knew he was going to pick it up, and it ended up being really important.
Yeah.
Really important. We see him get a really good break there on the left lane with a swisher hit. Belmo now is on a double, make that a 3-bagger, and it's a strike fest now.
Yep.
Now the gloves are off.
Now it's a slugging match.
Oh, yeah.
It's,
You can't shoot 2-0 or 2-1 and expect Belmo to not strike at least 5 or 6 times.
Yeah.
If not more than that, usually they're in a cluster.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
this was big. Belmo with a slight lead here, over to the left lane. Again, mentioned throwing those 2 different high road nanos, playing a lot of angle on the right lane.
Pin up on the left.
Yep. Yeah. Pin up. He's throwing it
down
harder.
right. Yep.
He's throwing it harder. He's squared up, less launch angle. You're gonna see him go more up the lane. Again, great for a 2-hander. They can launch it this shallow. And you see just crept a little bit high there. And he just, this was the part of the lane that West tried to play. When he made that adjustment, he zoned right, moved right, and tried to play this. Obviously, Belmo throws it a little bit harder. And his rotation is really up the back right now. He's trying to get that ball to pick up in the slicker conditions. And
It's something he's awesome at manipulating.
yeah, it's not just all side rotation.
Not all the time, no.
Absolutely not. And on the right lane, a little bit more friction. He can have closer to an A release in terms of rotation. With that pin down layout, it's going to be a little bit more rounded off the spot. It's not going to want to check and hook so quickly. But we see a 4-pin there, and this kind of it starts to be the Achilles heel for him on the left lane. This one was that was interesting there.
That was interesting because if he went down the ramp, the carpeted ramp, that foul line extends from wall to wall. So if he ran down the ramp next to his lane, that would have counted as a foul.
Yeah, let's.
So props to him for staying behind the line. Oh, it was really close, but wow, how athletic is Norm?
Yeah, that was. It's probably a good thing. He's glad he wasn't as tall, or he wasn't as tall as Wes, or any taller than that. He's keep his center of gravity a little bit lower.
Yeah. Randy said as soon as he did that, he's got the agility of a gazelle, and my wife cracked up. She thought that was the funniest thing she heard in a long time. So good job, Randy, for making her smile.
So right here, this was the first shot in the 10th. It honestly, I don't think the shot was that bad. On Specto, it didn't look that bad, but I think Belmo just got all of it.
Yeah.
Speed wise, it was up to par. He acted a little surprised.
Yeah.
He
said, "Whoa."
Yeah, how it came off the pattern. How'd that go?
Whoa.
Okay.
Crikey. That ball hooked a lot.
So you got it all, but the
However
last
he
word, a
sounds.
lot wasn't very good. Good spare here. That was actually really big. You're not mailing it in yet. You pick up the baby split. You never know what's going to happen, but that first hit was the one that he needed.
Yeah.
And I just think he kind of just threw it too good almost. It just checked off that spot pretty hard.
Yeah.
So now at this point, you're looking at the numbers, and Norm knows you pretty much keep it on the lane. And what a way to win title number 39.
Yeah, against the best in the world.
Oh, 100%.
Peered it there.
Yep.
And you can see that his specto lines are right on top of each other. It's just the tiniest thing. If he just catches a little bit too much or lays off, it's either a swisher or a baby split.
Yep.
It's that tough.
Yeah, so Norm needs 7. Norm knows how to do math. He's just going to throw one down the middle. Bam, 8 pins. And Norm Duke is your champion 2019 Indianapolis Open
Yep.
for the 39th time.
And I don't think anyone from anywhere in any corner of the world is mad at that.
No, you can't. And it's a great story. It's great for Norm. Norm's obviously been a big part of Storm as well. But even if it was with anybody else, just to see somebody like Norm win, again, it's been so long, and he's such a fan favorite. It's how do you not love it, right? I mean, how do you not love it? It's great.
Everyone at this point was Duke, and my daughter was saying Pooh. No, Kenzie, my 5-year-old, is Duke. I thought it was really cool here. I've never seen this done before. Props to
With
Duke.
the trophy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let the fans pass it around. Let's see if I can find it. All right, let's start over. This is really cool right here where he lets the fans, take it down the aisle. Everyone's taking selfies with it. How cool is that? That's the kind of class act Duke is, and he, even when he's not talking to you, makes you feel like $1 million. Such a cool guy.
So final tidbit, also a cool stat in that building, Norm Duke now has 5 titles.
In the same building.
In the same center, which is like a span across some decades, but that's great. I hope you guys have enjoyed this segment. We'll do some more cool stuff like this. Again, it's a little bit more casual, and you know, we're all fans of the sport.
We want to hear your suggestions.
Yeah, we're all fans of the PBA. Even if you'd like us to maybe take a look at an older show, anything like that, feel free to post comments below, and obviously like and subscribe if you haven't to Storm Bowling. Other than that, I've been Zach.
I have been Chad.
And we'll see you guys next time. Bowl up a storm.